Archie Bunker is having one of those days where he isn't just annoyed, he's spiritually offended. It starts with a newspaper, which in most homes is a harmless stack of paper that tells you the weather and reminds you that eggs cost more than your childhood memories. In Archie's home, the newspaper is basically a live grenade with ink. He's reading an article about discrimination at local clubs, and by the time he gets to the end, you can practically see him assembling a complaint in his brain like it's a do-it-yourself project. Archie doesn't read articles, he interrogates them. He takes every sentence personally, as if the newspaper editor is sitting in the room pointing directly at him and saying, "Yes, you, Archie, we wrote this just for you." And the worst part is, Archie knows exactly what the article is describing because he's been part of those conversations, those membership questions that get asked with a straight face, like they're as normal as "Do you have a driver's license?" The problem is that Archie's version of normal questions are the kind of questions that make the room go quiet in 2025, 1995, and honestly, even 1975. The panic hits full volume when Archie realizes the article is about his club. His precious little clubhouse situation. His private club, which in Archie's mind is basically a sacred institution like a church, except the hymns are complaining and the communion is cheap beer. He starts arguing before anyone even speaks, because Archie has never met a moment of silence he didn't want to fill with his opinion. Mike, his son-in-law, tries to do what Mike always does, explain reality in simple sentences. Mike points out that if a club is excluding people based on who they are, that's discrimination. Archie tries to defend it with the kind of logic that only makes sense if you've been talking for so long you forgot how listening works. He insists it's not discrimination, it's standards, like the club is a museum and not a bunch of guys hanging out. Then Mike drops the one word that makes Archie's eyes widen: taxes. Specifically, the club's tax exemption. The clubhouse has a property tax break. If the club is labeled discriminatory, that tax break could disappear. And this is where the whole situation becomes very, very Archie. Because you can debate morals with Archie all day, and he'll treat it like a sport. But bring up money, and suddenly Archie becomes the most attentive student in the room. It's like his brain has a separate emergency system that only activates when the word tax enters the atmosphere. Now, Archie wants a solution. Fast. Not a moral solution. Archie isn't suddenly going to wake up and become a social reformer. He wants the kind of solution that makes the trouble go away without changing anything important. The classic fix the appearance, not the problem approach. He calls a meeting with the club guys at his house, and they show up like a committee of men who all think they're the only reasonable person in Queens. They're upset, worried, and most of all, terrified of losing money. Their conversation is basically a chorus of "this is unfair" paired with "we didn't do anything wrong" paired with "please don't make us pay more." Archie tries to steer them toward a plan that's equal parts panic and performance. Bring in a member who will make the club look inclusive. Not because they want inclusion, but because they want protection. It's a classic PR move before PR had a name. Look, Archie's logic says, if we have one member who doesn't match our usual membership, then nobody can accuse us of anything. Problem solved. It's the kind of plan a person makes when they confuse having a human being in the room with having a conscience. And then Archie takes it one step further. He doesn't just want one different member. He wants the most efficient version possible, someone who checks multiple boxes, as if he's shopping for a certificate instead of inviting a person. He identifies Solomon Jackson, someone he knows from work. Solomon is smart, composed, and not the kind of man who gets easily pushed around. Which makes him, in Archie's world, the perfect candidate, because Archie has no idea what he's actually inviting into his house. Archie thinks he's recruiting a shield. What he's actually recruiting is a mirror. Archie sets up a dinner, trying to make it look casual while obviously making it the least casual dinner in history. He wants everything just right, but his version of just right is awkward hospitality with a nervous smile, like a man hosting a diplomatic summit while pretending it's a barbecue. Edith, as always, is the heart of the house. She genuinely wants everyone to feel welcome. She doesn't treat Solomon like a prop. She treats him like a guest. And that difference matters, because in a room full of performance, sincerity is loud. Solomon arrives, polite, calm, and instantly aware that something is off. Archie's club guys show up too, trying to act friendly in the way people act friendly when they're hoping you'll leave soon. The conversation starts with small talk and quickly drifts into the real pitch. They tell Solomon all about the club, about good times, about camaraderie, and then, almost without realizing it, they reveal their true plan. Solomon can join, but he doesn't have to actually come around much. He can be a member on paper. He can keep living his life. He doesn't have to mingle. He doesn't have to participate. He doesn't have to bring friends. He can be the kind of member who exists like a decorative plant, present, harmless, and silent. Solomon listens, nodding, absorbing, and you can feel the tension in the room because Archie and the guys are desperate for him to accept. They're not selling the club, they're selling themselves the fantasy that they can dodge consequences with one signature. Archie is smiling too hard. The club guys are laughing at jokes that aren't funny. Edith is trying to keep the tone warm. Mike, if he's present in the orbit of this conversation, is basically the uninvited voice in Archie's head yelling, "Do you hear yourselves?" Solomon finally responds, and he does something brilliant. He accepts, at least on the surface. The club guys relax like they've just dodged a meteor. Archie looks proud, like he just invented fairness. You can almost see the tax exemption floating above his head like a halo. Then Solomon adds the part they never imagined. He says, in essence, that he's excited to join, and he's going to bring more members. He's going to bring people. He's going to bring a community. He's going to turn the club into what a club should be: open, active, welcoming, alive. And the room freezes. Because this is the moment Archie's plan collapses under the weight of reality. The club guys wanted one member as a shield. Solomon is proposing actual inclusion, actual change, actual presence. The thing they've been trying to avoid is now walking into the room, wearing a polite smile. Archie tries to interrupt. The club guys start stumbling over words. Their faces turn into the same expression people make when they realize the small adjustment they made is about to become a permanent lifestyle change. Solomon keeps talking, still polite, still calm, but now the message is sharp. If you want inclusion, you don't get to do it halfway. If you want fairness, you don't get to treat a person like paperwork. If you invite someone in, you don't get to dictate that they should be invisible. Solomon leaves, and it's one of those exits that doesn't need yelling. He doesn't have to insult them. He doesn't have to raise his voice. He simply exposes them by taking them seriously. Archie and the guys are left sitting in the embarrassment of their own plan, like men who tried to trick the world and accidentally tricked themselves first. That would be enough for most households to call it a day. But Archie's life is never one plotline. Archie's life is always two plotlines and a third one waiting in the hallway. Because while Archie is still recovering from the club disaster, the universe delivers a second conflict right next door. Barney Hefner's dog, Rusty, has decided Archie's front walkway is a perfectly reasonable bathroom. Archie reacts like Rusty isn't a dog but a personal enemy with a mission. He storms, he complains, he turns it into a matter of neighborhood honor. Edith tries to calm him down because Edith understands something Archie never quite gets. Dogs aren't trying to insult you. Dogs are just being dogs. But Archie doesn't want biology. Archie wants justice. And Archie's version of justice is petty. He decides to return the mess to Barney's porch. It's the kind of decision that feels satisfying for exactly 5 seconds and then creates 3 days of consequences. Edith pleads with him not to do it. Archie does it anyway because Archie's pride is stronger than his common sense. Barney finds out, of course. Neighbors always find out. Barney comes over furious, and the two men argue the way only neighbors can argue, like they have no actual power in the world, so they use their driveways as battlefields. Archie threatens Barney, Barney threatens Archie, and the whole thing becomes the kind of ridiculous standoff where you can't tell whether someone is going to throw a punch or just keep yelling until dinner gets cold. Edith tries to soften it with kindness, which is like trying to stop a storm by offering it a sandwich. Then, because sitcom life always has a twist, an accident happens. Archie backs his cab into Barney's door. In the chaos, Rusty gets hurt. Not a silly little scratch. A real injury, serious enough to require the vet. And the tone shifts instantly, because no matter how loud these men argue, nobody wants a living creature hurt. They rush Rusty to the vet, and suddenly Archie's loud confidence becomes shaky guilt. He still complains about money because that's Archie's reflex, but his guilt leaks through anyway. The vet bills arrive like an extra punch. Archie reacts like the numbers personally insulted him. But this isn't about bills. It's about responsibility. Back home, Archie tries to figure out how to tell Barney. Edith insists they must tell the truth immediately. Archie wants to manage it, which is Archie's favorite hobby, controlling narratives after they've already exploded. He tries to soften the story, angle it, wrap it in explanation, as if the right phrasing can undo what happened. It becomes a ridiculous attempt at being extra friendly to Barney, like Archie is trying to charm his way out of physics. Barney shows up, and for a brief moment, it looks like he's ready to bury the earlier fight. He even says he wants to forget it. Archie, who is not built for calm reconciliation, starts acting strangely polite. Too polite. Suspiciously polite. Like someone who broke your vase and is now complimenting you on how nice your living room looks. Then Archie starts talking around the truth. He mentions how awful it would be if a dog got hurt, how terrible accidents are, how you never know what can happen in life, basically giving a long speech that screams something happened without actually saying what happened. And then, because Archie is Archie, he slips. He reveals the vet bill amount, which is the kind of detail you only know if you were there. Barney's face changes. The truth lands. He realizes what Archie is trying to hide. Barney's reaction is immediate. Anger, pain, protectiveness. Not cartoon anger, real anger. Archie gets defensive because Archie's self-defense mechanism is always to talk faster and louder until reality gets tired. Edith tries to keep them from turning this into a full neighborhood war. When Barney sees Rusty's splint, the anger deepens, but then something else happens. Barney listens. Edith speaks gently. The situation becomes human again, not just noisy. Archie, in his clumsy way, tries to share blame, pointing out that Rusty shouldn't have been wandering, that Barney should keep better control. It's classic Archie. Even when he knows he's at fault, he wants the universe to split the responsibility, like a check at a diner. Barney doesn't love hearing it, but he also knows it was an accident, and accidents don't come with villains, they come with consequences. By the end, the neighbor feud cools into an uneasy truce. Rusty is recovering. Barney considers getting Rusty a companion, which makes Edith happy because she loves the idea of more life, more warmth, more comfort. Archie immediately worries about the idea of more dogs, more noise, more mess, because Archie sees companion and hears additional problems. It's the perfect closing note. Even in a moment of peace, Archie finds something to complain about, like it's a talent he practiced since birth. What makes this whole episode work is how the two storylines mirror each other. In the club plot, Archie tries to solve discrimination like it's a math problem. Add one person, subtract criticism, keep the tax break. Solomon refuses to be used that way. He exposes Archie's plan by simply taking it to its logical conclusion. Real inclusion, not fake. In the dog plot, Archie tries to solve conflict with petty revenge, and the universe punishes that approach with an accident that forces real responsibility. In both cases, Archie learns the same lesson the hard way. You can't cheat your way out of consequences. You can't control people like paperwork. And you can't treat life like a game where you win by yelling louder. The humor is never in cruelty. It's in absurdity. Archie trying to act welcoming while clearly doing a performance. Club guys trying to dodge accountability with a paper member. Two grown men turning a dog complaint into a neighborhood standoff. Archie attempting to hide guilt by becoming overly friendly, which only makes him look more guilty. And through it all, Edith is the steady force, kind, sincere, refusing to let pride become ugliness. She doesn't win debates. She keeps the house from collapsing. And that's the real punchline, if there is one. Archie thinks strength is loud, but the quiet strength in the room is Edith, and the quiet intelligence in the room is Solomon. They don't need to shout to change the outcome. They just need to stand there and let Archie's own plan trip over itself.